Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. You are very, very welcome this afternoon. So this is the first webinar of our spring series or our March series of NI case studies on climate action. And this afternoon, we are going to talk about the links between climate change and our water, the thing that comes out of our tap, you know. So I'm Géraldine Noé. I'm a head of environment at Business in the Community in Northern Ireland. This webinar series is part of our business action on climate campaign, where we want to challenge and support all businesses in Northern Ireland to address the climate emergency. So if you have never heard of our business action on climate campaign, please visit our webpage, bitcni.org.uk/climate, where you can learn how you can take action, and more specifically, you can sign our climate action pledge. So if we look at the agenda for today, we are here together for 45 minutes. So I think that's a nice way to kick off your afternoon. I hope you have a nice cup of tea with you. We have today two guest speakers. I'm very happy to welcome Damien O'Mullen from NI Water and Marcella Riley from RPS. So they will be giving us a presentation. We'll then have a Q&A. So if you have any questions on the presentation, you can type them at any moment in the question box that you can see in your screen on the right-hand side. And then we'll finish by 2:45. So to get things started, and to this is not to make it just a few words of introduction. This is just a quiz to have fun. It's not to shame anyone who likes to buy bottled water. Obviously, it's just to well, keep you interested and keep you awake and just kick off this webinar. So a short quiz. The carbon footprint of 1 liter of bottled water is how many times bigger than the footprint of 1 liter of tap water? And that's cold tap water. So is it 10 times bigger, 100 times bigger, 1,000 times bigger, or 10,000 times bigger? So 1 liter of bottled water versus 1 liter of tap water. So you should be able to answer now, to vote. This is 100% anonymous, so don't worry, we won't be judging you on your knowledge of this. So I'll give you 30 seconds to vote and to tell us what you think. Okay, can we see the, no, sorry, 73%, or just a few more seconds to give time to everyone to vote. Okay, let's see. Yeah, let's see what you think. Can we see the results? Maybe not. Okay, so yes, we can. Perfect. So 100 times bigger, 1,000 times bigger, or 10,000 times bigger? Well, those of you who replied 1,000 times bigger, so answer number 3, were right. So just to give you the figures, so 1 liter of cold tap water on average in the UK is 0.4 grams of CO2 equivalent, and 1 liter of bottled water is 400 grams. So that's 1,000 times more. Just an interesting fact is, well, all those facts come from the book How Bad Are Bananas? By Mike Berners-Lee, which is a gold mine of facts and figures on carbon footprint. So I really, really recommend it. It's about the carbon footprint of everything. So that was just well, as a little tease. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Damien from NI Water, who will be talking to us about what NI Water does on the climate emergency. Damien, welcome.
So can you hear me, Géraldine?
Yes, we can.
Thanks very much. I didn't know whether I was muted or unmuted or what was going on there. So thanks very much for the kind introduction. So my name is Damien Mullen and I work within the energy team at Northern Ireland Water. And I'd like to share some of the initiatives that we have in place to help tackle the climate emergency. Would you mind going on to the first slide there, please? Or do I have control of that? I think I do, actually. Thank you.
No, you don't.
I don't. Okay, no problem. Thank you. So NI Water's response to date in relation to the climate emergency has focused on reducing our operational carbon emissions through improving the efficiency of our processes. Our energy efficiency work has delivered about £2.2 million worth of annual recurring benefits within the last regulatory price period, and we'll continue to build on that work as we move forward. We've also focused on the integration of renewable energy within our assets and have 55 solar installations at our water and wastewater treatment facilities located across Northern Ireland. Now, Marcel is going to talk a little bit about our largest facility that was completed at Dunor Point, which is a 6 megawatt scheme, and we'll talk a wee bit about that later on. It powers our water treatment works directly from solar power, which is also topped up from the grid at times where we have lower demand. So we recognise that there's a strong and growing interest in taking action against climate change. We all need to wake up and recognise that there's an emergency. I think everybody has, and there's massive momentum behind the movement in relation to the climate emergency. We need to embrace the opportunity for new thinking and move together to deliver our carbon agenda. As a water business, we recognise the important role as a custodian of nature. We are the largest electricity user in Northern Ireland, and with 3,000 distributed sites with electricity connections right across Northern Ireland, so we have a huge strategic position in relation to all our assets all over Northern Ireland. And we're also the second largest landowner, so we want to work with others to take action which is significant to society and also for ourselves. So we think we've got a really important role to play in relation to the climate emergency. If we view Northern Ireland Water and its assets through a different lens, is there a potential for the company to have an important role in developing Northern Ireland's net zero plan? A huge amount of work going on in the background there to see and different exciting projects. I want to run through a few of those today. Mind go on to the next slide, please. So we've recently announced our plans to plant 1 million trees over the next 10 years in conjunction with the Woodland Trust. Our regreening programme has a number of benefits, including improving water quality for the business, helping with flood mitigation, helping to offset our carbon emissions and enhancing our natural environment. Over the last 10 years, we've already planted 150,000 trees in some of our drinking water catchment areas for water quality and carbon offsetting. We want to build on this experience and accelerate this work in response to the climate emergency. So there's a huge amount of work going on there in relation to that, and we have recently within this planting season just started another ambitious first round of planting. You go on to the next slide, please. So on this slide, looking at our assets through a different lens, we want to maximise the renewable energy development potential across our portfolio. We recognise the need to build more renewables within our assets, and also the need to work with others to enable the low carbon economy in Northern Ireland. And it's our ambition to consume 100% green electricity by the end of the next regulatory price period. Mind going on to the next slide, please. Our system operator for Northern Ireland has highlighted the need to significantly increase Northern Ireland's renewable generation capacity over the next 10 years. It will require energy storage capability to deal with that intermittent nature of renewable generation, especially the increase in wind generation. So NI Water's unique position to incorporate battery storage across our assets will, in a manner which will enable renewable energy development in Northern Ireland, will increase resilience of supply for Northern Ireland Water, and also will help to lower costs for water and electricity customers. If you go on to the next slide, please. So the government has recently announced that from 2030, the sale of all new cars and vans powered exclusively by a petrol or diesel engine will be banned in a bid to cut emissions and air pollution. We anticipate a gradual replacement of our fleet over the next regulatory price period, and the need for charging infrastructure to support that transition will also need to be installed within our assets. It's also clear that hydrogen will have a key role in the decarbonisation of transport. This is evident in TransLink's recent announcement to buy 100 buses from Wrightbus in Ballymena, a significant portion of which will be powered by hydrogen fuel cells. NI Water have also recognised the potential of the electrolysis process within our wastewater processes. We are currently in the process of procuring a £5 million hydrogen and oxygen demonstrator project funded by the Department of the Economy. We're intending to install a 1 megawatt electrolyser at one of our Belfast sites to produce hydrogen for transport and oxygen for the incorporation within the wastewater treatment works. So we want to install oxygen into our processes in a manner which gets the bulk state faster and increases the efficiency of our work. So there's a huge amount of work and research going on to see how Northern Ireland Water's assets can play a part in relation to the growing and development of the hydrogen economy in Northern Ireland. Go on to the next slide, please. So we also believe that hydrogen and green gas will help the gas network to remain relevant in decarbonising the world. Our approach to hydrogen technology and our strategy for sludge disposal may create opportunity for gas to get projects. We recognise the need to contribute to this challenge. So there's a huge amount of work going on there within the business, and we believe hydrogen and other elements of our industrial processes will have a role to play in that gas network side of the decarbonisation requirements. And if you go on to the next slide, please. So finally on this slide, I'd like to talk a little bit about heat recovery from wastewater. So we're learning from our colleagues in England, and most notably in relation to two recent low carbon farming projects in Norwich and Bury St Edmunds, where they're currently constructing 30 hectares of glass houses, and they're heating those glass houses with heat pumps, which are deriving their energy source from the final effluent from a couple of large wastewater treatment works. So we want to see what that looks like in a Northern Ireland context. Can Northern Ireland Water move forward to help and contribute in relation to the decarbonisation of agriculture and food? And we're taking learnings from that forward, and we want to see what role that has to play in relation to how we develop our assets moving forward. It's quite exciting that for the business, and there are a huge number of opportunities that I've covered some of them, but I think now, if we go on to the next slide, please, we'd like to talk a wee bit about our Donore Solar project. That's a photograph of it just after commissioning, I believe, or very late in the project. Marcella Riley from RPS is on next, and she's going to talk through the project. I don't need to go into too much detail in relation to it. It's covering our supplying electricity to our largest, or one of our largest water treatment works, and was a great success project for Northern Ireland Water. So I'll maybe hand you over to Marcella. I don't know what the process is from here on. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Damien. Okay, so I am Marcella Riley from RPS Belfast. We're one of NI Water's framework consultants, and we project managed and technically advised NI Water in the delivery of the Donore Solar Farm. So today I'd like to just take you through some of the information behind that, just to give you an idea. And it, as Damien says, it has been thankfully a great success. So as Damien's already said, Northern Ireland Water is the largest user of electricity in Northern Ireland. From their assets, Donore Point Water Treatment Works, it's situated on the eastern shores of Lough Neagh in South Antrim. It's the third largest site in terms of energy consumption, and it accounts for 7% of the company's annual usage. So NI Water were assessing the potential use for renewable energy at Donore Point, obviously to improve the use of sustainable energy, but also to derive operational costs and benefits. During April 16, planning approval was granted to a solar developer for the development of a 46 megawatt solar farm on lands adjacent to the water treatment works, and you can see it just in the slide outlined in red. At the same time, NI Water we're obviously carrying out the business case to look at renewables. By January 17, NI Water had secured their own 5 megawatt grid connection offer from NIE, and therefore we're in a position to take the business case forward. That business case looked at the use of renewable energy to contribute to powering Donore Point water treatment works, and specifically looked at 2 options. Next slide, please. Option 1 involved entering into a power purchase agreement with the solar provider on the adjacent lands. This option required reduced or no capital investment by NI Water, as the solar developer would be responsible for the construction of the solar farm. It would achieve a reduction in rate of around 1 to 2p per kilowatt hour. It would provide NI Water with a seamless connection to both the grid and a renewable energy source. And with no capital investment or construction involved, this option limited NI Water's exposure to risk. However, the result being a lesser financial benefit of approximately £120,000 per year. Option 2 involved NI Water entering into an agreement with the solar provider and the landowner to utilise the planning approval by leasing an area off the lands, constructing and operating a 5 megawatt solar farm themselves. While exposing NI Water to financial and construction risks and a large financial investment of approximately £7 million required, this option offered financial incentives through NI Water Renewables Obligation Certificate Scheme, get my tongue around that, but only if completed by the 31st of March 18. Again, NI Water would benefit from a seamless connection to the grid and a renewable energy source, but this option also offered the opportunity to export this surplus generated energy to the grid, offering an additional revenue stream. The total benefit assessed at business case stage was around £500,000 to £600,000 per annum, but obviously with much greater and full exposure to all the risks. Next slide, please. So as the business case proceeded, it assessed both options and concluded with a decision to proceed with option 2, to self-build a 5 megawatt solar farm on 33 acres of leased farmlands. The benefits being operational cost savings in the region of £500,000 per annum, ROC's incentive contribution of around £360,000. The farm will be capable of generating 5,500 megawatt hours per year, which is equivalent to the annual energy consumption of 1,500 homes. And approximately 4,200 megawatt hours per year would be used to power the water treatment works. The surplus energy generated then will be exported to the grids, creating that revenue stream. The overall effect would be a reduction in NI Water's carbon footprint of around 2,000 tonnes of CO2 in comparison to consuming the equivalent quantity of electricity from the grid. Next slide, please. So by August 2017, NI Water had availed of their capital delivery frameworks to put in place a team of local consultants and contractors to deliver the project. And you can see the organogram there outlines the parties involved. We have RPS Belfast, who represented the client for the project management and the technical services. Scott's Electrical Services, who again are framework suppliers to NI Water, covered the HV element of the scheme. Graham Construction and their sub-consultants and subcontractors delivered the scheme on site, AECOM being their civil designer and the German company Green Cells being the solar provider, with again Scott's Electrical Services providing the HV element. So to secure all of the outlined benefits, an operational solar farm had to be in place, generating energy before the 31st of March 18 to qualify for the ROCs. A challenging 8-month project lay ahead. And crucial to the successful delivery was the team ethos adopted by all parties and the early involvement of the key stakeholders, including the landowner, the water treatment work operators, who were NI Water Alpha, and NI Water Networks, NIE Networks, who were key to the whole process. Next slide, please. So the 5 megawatt solar farm itself, it consisted of the PV module, foundations, the mounting frames, and the PV modules themselves, field inverter units, step-up transformers, substation cabling, access roads drainage, site security fences, and CCTV. New infrastructure was also required within the water treatment works boundary, both to facilitate the connection, but also to improve the long-term electricity supply to the water treatment works. This work consisted of a new NIE control building, new substation and switchboards for NI Water, HV cabling, grid interconnection works, telecoms, and data management and monitoring systems. And so, next slide, please. Just to put it maybe into more context, just what it looks like and the numbers involved, the scale of the development. We had 140 kilometres of cables, 24,000 solar modules, 136 inverters, 3 step-up transformers, 1 substation at the farm, a new substation within the water treatment works, and then works to the actual NE grid connection point itself, just to make that final connection. So next slide, please. So the solar farm data monitoring and SCADA system uses a cloud-based management system, and this is what NI Water would see remotely from any one of the laptops that are connected to the system. This system's capable of analysing the loss right down to segments within arrays, and it so therefore makes fault detection very easy, specifically down to a location, and drives system optimization, as this can be very, very quickly corrected. Provision also includes on-site weather station, which is used in conjunction with the converters, combiner boxes, and transformer sensors, and it provides data collection, assessment, and display to give us this graph showing, and this shows a daily profile through, I'm not sure what that date was, looking at it, but that's really your daily profile. As you can see, as you approach midday and afternoon, the levels generated peak and then fall off towards the evening. Next slide, please. So the solar farm grid connection was successfully completed on the 1st of March 18, with commissioning and testing of the power plant controller and auxiliary services completed, and the solar farm generating power by the 21st of March 2018. This ensured that NI Water was in a position to complete their application under the ROC scheme prior to its final closure on the 31st of March 18. So that was a good day for all when we flicked the switch and began generating, and NI Water availed of those ROCs. The generation figures since March 18 have exceeded business case expectations. The farm is generating in excess of the 5,500 megawatt hours per year. It is providing approximately 20% of the total electricity consumption of the treatment works, and it is exceeding the projected operational savings, and the energy going to the grid is also providing that revenue stream. And you can see there the profiles from the last 3 years. Obviously 2021's just not finished there for February and March, but you can see if you look at the green one, we reached our peak level back in April, May last year when we were all enjoying the sunshine at the start of lockdown. So let's hope this year brings the same. So next slide, please. So in addition to the obvious benefit of providing a renewable energy source, the Dunor solar projects strive for low environmental impact whilst maximising opportunity. The height of the solar arrays is held at 2.5 metres above the ground to limit visual impact. Existing trees and hedgerows provide screening from the main road and the surrounding areas. The solar panels themselves are designed to absorb, not reflect, the sunlight, and therefore an anti-reflective coating reduces that light reflection. There's no moving parts, so maintenance is minimum. There's no byproduct or waste generated, and the PV modules themselves can be recycled when they come to end of life, and there's no floodlighting on the site. The opportunities which arose were obviously, we now have water treatment from Donore Point Water Treatment Works using green energy. The agricultural use of the land continues, and you can see the picture of the sheep grazing, and they do continue to graze that land in and around all the rows of panels. And we took the opportunity to enhance biodiversity within the area with the introduction of wildflower seeding. So next slide, please. So all in all, Donore Solar Farm was delivered within tight timescales and to budget, and has exceeded the performance expectations, and is successfully contributing to Northern Ireland's water's decarbonisation targets. So hopefully that gives you a gist of the project and the scale of the project, and thankfully we can report now 3 years later that it has been a great success. Thank you.
Thank you so much to both of you. That was really interesting. I love to see the backstage of such a big project. So that was really interesting. Thank you to both of you. We'll now take questions from the audience. So again, everyone, please don't hesitate to type your questions in the chat box or the questions box. We have a first one, which will be probably more for Damien. How will NI Water balance the network constraints between the high generation areas and the high usage areas?
So, as quite an interesting, quite a very good question. As we move forward as a business, and as Northern Ireland moves forward towards an increase in the levels of asynchronous renewables on the grid, there's going to be a need to provide, as the question alludes to, match demand and supply, and where you've got a varying supply, you've all sorts of things to do to start and optimize and to use the electricity as and when it's available. As a business, Northern Ireland Water, we want to play our part through the provision of grid services. So we want to, and we do use our assets at the moment for capacity and DS3 services, and that allows the grid to operate and to function better whenever renewables are incorporated. So that's probably one of the key areas that we are looking at and growing and developing as a business. And it's also a revenue stream for Northern Ireland Water, which helps to improve the cost efficiency of the electricity that we use. And over and above that, we're starting to look to see how we can incorporate new technologies such as lithium-ion battery technology and energy storage in the form of hydrogen, and then other things like being able to flex our assets and having and growing our knowledge around our assets and the way that we control those assets in a manner so that we can align our consumption profiles better with the generation profiles of renewable assets, and that has obvious cost benefits for the business. That will, increase the benefits for the business as we move towards greater levels of renewables in the mix in Northern Ireland. So, yeah, it's something that we're working at. One of the other things that sort of energy storage and system service type flexibility does for businesses or a large energy consumer like ourselves, it allows us to be able to interact better with the market. So that flexibility and that ability to be able to move and optimize the scenario, should it be a windy period, should it be a non-windy period, what do we do and how do we interact with the market? That's all about control. It's all about visibility around our assets. We're developing dashboards and working very closely with lots of different suppliers to increase our capability in that regard. And we've got a supplier day coming up in a few weeks' time where we're opening up and talking to various people in the supply chain to see how we can build and grow and develop that area of the business.
Great, thanks, Damien. One probably more for Marcella. Without the rocks, would a project of this size be repeated?
I think yes. The ROC scheme obviously come to an end, and I think that was obviously the drive behind the way that NI Water approached the Donore Solar Farm, in that there was planning approval available. We could deliver the scheme within a tight time scale and avail of those rocks. But as Damien said earlier on, NI Water is one of Northern Ireland's biggest landowners and have a big portfolio of land available. So certainly at the moment for NI Water, we are looking at a number of solar projects, and the finances are coming through that, yes, they are viable without the rocks, both with delivering within NI Water's own lands, but with market prices. And I think Damien's probably more in touch with the market, but that the prices for the technology is becoming more and more competitive and more viable as each year goes in. So we're finding now that, yes, schemes, and they range from much smaller installations right up to, we're looking at the moment at another 3 megawatts at Dunor to work with the existing 5, and looking and trying to get the best market rates that we can make them viable without the rocks. Yeah, Damien may want to jump in there.
I might add to, I think, you know, it depends on the project. Absolutely, it just depends on the project. So, you know, the end of the support mechanism has reduced your revenue potential, but we've seen downward trends in relation to the cost of solar panels. And for large energy users or large electricity consumers and businesses that have a profile which aligns with the profile of this type of solar technology, there's absolutely you know, opportunities to be had. Not every project will fit, not every project will suit, but there's definitely opportunities there, and we're working with Marcella and others to see what an unsubsidized solar project or any other renewable project would look like whenever it's incorporated within our assets. And I think maybe lifting the lid and marrying, and what we talked about earlier on in relation to marrying demand and supply, and also the cost that you're paying, offsetting the cost that you're paying through private wire type arrangements, is something which is going to be and is super important moving forward.
Okay. Question relating to the first part of your presentation, Damien. Are there any district heating examples happening here in Northern Ireland already, or the sort of greenhouse heating projects, or is that only in Britain?
None that I'm aware of. It's something that we are actively looking at. But it needs to be Northern Ireland centric, so we don't have the sunlight that they have in the south of England, and also in relation to schemes. I don't think there are any here. There are some across the water, and it's something which is emerging and developing. One thing that we quite liked about those sort of low carbon farming solutions is that the heat requirement is quite large with a single user, and it will be something that you know, in terms of the scale of the heat that's in the final effluent of a wastewater treatment works, will be something that, you know, may provide the economies of scale and the economics to try and build a case around that. It may require support, but we're working through that. And I think the most important thing is that we're embracing these opportunities and moving forward to see how they fit in a Northern Ireland centric context.
Okay, great, thanks. A question for Marcella. How much shorter is the payback period on the capital investment given the increase in actual benefits received?
I can't tell you the exact figures because I don't have the exact figures, but I know that certainly, obviously for the business case to get through the procedures in NI Water, the payback period for Dunor had to stack up originally. I think what we should remember on Dunor was we also carried out some capital infrastructure works within the treatment works that would have happened. But for the solar farm in itself, it did the payback period, the minimum payback period that NI Water would look for. And I think from memory, it was around 10 years was achieved. So the benefit now is we're bettering that. So I would imagine we have dropped off a couple of years. I'm not sure if Damien has up-to-date data. We don't monitor it, but
it's something you would have thought that I would have researched before.
I'm putting you on the spot there, Damien, aren't I?
But but it is exceeding our expectations, and the plant's doing well and running well.
Okay. And is there any barrier to move to, so today it's 20% coming from that renewable energy source. Is there any way we could imagine 100% of the energy could come from renewables for such a plant?
I think that, it is possible, but there's a huge amount of work to do to try and see how a solution could be derived around that. I mean, if we look at technologies like anaerobic digestion and generating sources from renewables that have a more constant load profile, there certainly would be a solution that could work from that. From solar, you've got that intermittency. You obviously don't have solar at night. So it's seeing how you could size a project, incorporate flexibility and storage in a manner which would optimize solar, optimize the cost of storage and cost of the project in a manner which would give an acceptable payback. So yeah, you could move towards that, but it would mean more than just increased solar.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Marcella, any take on that, on a 100% vision?
No, I think NI Water in fairness are looking, obviously, like I said, we're already looking at another solar farm at Donore in particular. And as Damien says, the inclusion of battery storage and things like that obviously means we can take much more benefit, that we're not losing what we need during the night. We can take our solar provision then from during the day, use it at night time, things like that. So there certainly is great efforts being made within iWater to try and enhance what they've already got. With being such a large electricity user, it's obviously not going to happen overnight, but I think certainly the right steps are being taken.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the important things in relation to that is the provision of grid services to facilitate the grid to accommodate more renewables. So if we as a business and we as a company responsible for so many assets can start to provide the services and the flexibility required to enable an increased level of renewables in the grid, then ultimately that holistic picture can move towards a much greater level of renewables in the mix. And that's, I suppose, there's 2 or 3 different elements that need to come together to move us to where we get to go, and I'm sure everybody appreciates that.
If for maybe just one last question for the businesses that are attending today, listening to this, what would you say? Well, what would you have to say to them? Or maybe a simpler question would be, what is the biggest barrier to overcome to have such a project or to participate in such a project? What would be your advice to them?
You mean a solar project, that like the Donore
A solar project, or speaking broader, so, an energy efficiency or renewable energy project?
I think one of the key things at the start of any of these sort of project journeys is to have a real good understanding of your requirements and visibility around your assets and the way that they consume energy, and then build a plan for the regulatory consents and the grid connections and everything else that has to go along with that. I mean, energy efficiency is always the first option that we look at for any project. So the kilowatt of power that we don't use is always the cheapest one to mitigate. So if we can reduce our consumption and then move forward to see, in the market and look at all the different options and see what solutions fit what scenarios. I mean, we have inland or we have in-town assets that are, and built up areas where large-scale renewables just isn't feasible. But I mean, there are other different options and things that we can look at.
Okay, thanks. And Marcella, any message for the businesses listening today who are hesitating maybe to take action?
I think it is what Damien says, everything's very scalable. So, if you look at NI Water, who are a large user of energy, but they still have small scale installations because every contribution helps. So it may be small scale, but I also think there is a lot of advice out there available and I think the planning policies and the environmental policies are all now obviously moving towards accommodating the generation of renewables. So hopefully those hurdles are getting easier as we go along, and the technologies are improving all of the time. So hopefully we're getting more for our pound every time. So it's certainly worth looking into and reaching out and I think getting that advice.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure everyone is really inspired to take action. Thank you so much to both of you for participating today and for giving us your testimony and your experience on this. So just to conclude this webinar, I said that this was the first episode of our March series. So we have upcoming dates and other webinars similar to this one. So the 22nd of March, we will have Power NI and Sony for an energy focus. On the 24th, we have TransLink. They will be talking to us about their hydrogen buses. And on the 30th of March, we will have Lidl and Deloitte talking to us about the future of retail and how those big, well, we all know what a supermarket is, how those big players are tackling the climate emergency. All those webinars are happening from 2 to 2:45, so please join us for these next episodes. And thank you everyone for attending today. If you have any question regarding what any of our speakers talked about today, any follow-up question or any question on the climate campaign that we are running at the moment, or wondering how you can start on your climate journey, please do reach out. And thank you again for attending. See you soon. Have a good afternoon.